everyone, good evening once again. So myself Girish Venkatesh and you are live on Drishti learning app. It's a live online class which Drishti IAS has brought to you for UGC-NET Political Science Paper 2. And as we all know that the exam scheduled tentative date for UGC-NET Paper 2 Political Science is June 2024. And in the last class, we had a short 1 hour introduction with regard to how we are going to deal with this Paper 2 Political Science. And I did say you a few important things with regard to the nature of questions which were, according to me, whether it was moderate, whether it was tough, whether it was the basic question, and what are the 4 types of questions which come. Even we talked about the case studies which comes from question number 91 to question number 100. So now we are clear with the syllabus, and in the last class I had given you a tip, or I can say I had given you a very good instruction, that was that you should get the syllabus print out, and you should stick it, fix it in front of the table or chair where you are sitting and studying. And with regard to the books, I had given you an instruction, that is that whatever books you had gone through in your graduation and MA level, those books must be in your table. That means those books be in front of you, and whatever topics we are going to study, you can consult those books which you have already gone through in your graduation level, or if you are in your MA classes or master's classes, then you are studying those books. So today we are going to start with Unit 4. As I said you, there are 10 units which we have to deal with. And today we are going to start with Unit 4. And Unit 4 is all about comparative politics. And in comparative politics, first of all, you should know that we have to talk about the approaches with regard to comparative politics. And we all know that the exam pattern is MCQ based. And when the exam pattern is MCQ based, so our whatever style we are adopting to prepare for the exams, that must be according to that, because it's not going to be a subjective exam, it's going to be a objective exam. So accordingly, we should strategize whatever way we are going to do the tayari and all. Chalo, let's go on with the first chapter. That is the first topic which we are going to do today. I'll give you a brief definition with regard to comparative politics. Yes, there were a lot of thinkers who came up with the definition of comparative politics. And in last class, I had said you that one of the nature of questions which come is who said what. And when who said what, then we should remember the definitions. And that too, not all the definitions, but very, very important definitions, which are often being asked in the UGC-NET exams. So what I've done is that when we'll go on with the class, one day I'll come up with all the definitions. But right now I have a couple of definitions. Then we will talk about the scope of comparative politics, and we'll talk about the approaches of comparative politics, like institutional approach, system approach, and so on. When we study those approaches, we'll go into the features of those approaches, we'll go into the criticism of those approaches, and we will go into the conclusion of those approaches. So as a result of which, what will happen is that we will be able to understand in depth about each and every approach. Now, what you people have to do in your home, because the preparations must be from both the sides. I must give you the guidance. You must take that guidance and do it as we are guiding here for you. It's not that I'll just show you the books here, I'll read each and every line of that book, and then I'll try to make you understand. That will be a very long process. So we have to complete the course as soon as possible. But because it's not a crash course, so we have to go into the depth also. So what I've done is that, I'll give you an example. What I've done is that, for example, this is the institutional approach which I'll teach you today. I have made smaller points with this. And because I made the smaller points, then it will be easy for you to understand. Because in UGC-NET paper, one more type of question comes, that is, you can say statement-based question, assertion, reasoning-based questions. So in that case, you have to have in-depth knowledge about each and every approach, each and every topic of this syllabus. But yes, as I am saying you, when our class gets over, when you get time in your home, just take out the book which you have and just read line to line of that book, of the topic which we will be covering today. For example, if we are covering institutional approach, then take out your book of comparative politics, open the page of institutional approach and just read it. And as you read it, everything will be crystal clear to you. But yes, if today I am dealing with institutional approach and 10 days after, if you read that, it won't help you. It won't help you. So that's why I'm telling, whatever topics which we cover here in the class every day, the same topics you should go with it in your home for self-study. And after that, when doubts crop up, you should come out with your doubts. You should contact your coordinators in Drishti IAS. You should ask them for an interaction class with me, and then you can clear your doubts. And with regard to, I have said you, whatever are the, booklets and all, you can get it, everything from the Drishti IAS. Okay. So now let's go on with the comparative politics, the definition. See, it's written here, I have written it, that comparative politics is a systematic study and a comparison of the diverse political system in the world. That means comparative politics is nothing else but it is a systematic study. Systematic study, as well as there is comparison being made. Comparison being made about what? Comparison being made about the diverse political system in the world. It is comparative in searching to explain why different political systems have similarities or differences and how developmental changes came to be between them. That means in comparative politics, if you put it in simple terms, then in comparative politics, we are basically trying to explain why different political systems have similarities between them, why different political systems have differences between them, and how different political systems have been able to develop changes that have came between them. That means when we are trying to talk about comparative politics, we should know that it is a systematic study, and this systematic study is nothing else but it is the comparison of diverse political system of the world. And in comparative study, we try to compare, we try to search and try to explain why different political systems have similar or differences and how developmental changes came to be between them. So this is what is comparative politics in simple terms. So we are trying to compare various political systems, and whatever are their similarities, whatever are their differences, we try to find it out. And whatever developmental changes have taken place between them, that also we try to find out. So it's all about the political system of the world. Now there was a political thinker, his name was Edward Freeman. I said I'll give you the definitions with more thinkers like that. So there was a political thinker, his name was Edward Freeman, and according to Edward Freeman, comparative politics is the comparative analysis of the various forms of governments and diverse political institutions. So he says that comparative politics is nothing else but it is comparative analysis. So he is using the word comparative analysis. What is using? He is using the word comparative analysis. Who is using it? Freeman. So Freeman says comparative politics is nothing else but it is comparative analysis. Comparative analysis of what? Comparative analysis of various forms of government and diverse political institutions. Okay, so according to Freeman, comparative politics is the study of comparative analysis of various forms of government and diverse political institutions. Then there is one more political thinker. His name is Michael Curtis. His name is Michael Curtis. You can spell it in your own words. I spell it Curtis. C-U-R-T-I-S. Michael Curtis. And Michael Curtis is what? He says comparative politics is concerned with significant regularities, similarities and differences in the working of the political institution and in political behavior. That means now Curtis says something different from that of Freeman. Freeman says comparative politics is comparative analysis of various forms of government and diverse political institutions. He's saying that. But when it comes to Curtis, Curtis says that it is concerned with significant. Significant means very important. It is concerned with significant regularities. That is the regular activities which are taking place, significant regular activities, significant similarities, significant differences in the working of various political institutions and in political behavior. So, what is the similarity between the definition of comparative politics of Freeman and Curtis? They all are talking about political institutions. They all are talking about various forms of government. So, whatever is the comparison, and this comparison is with regard to the similarity, with regard to the differences which are there between various political institutions and various forms of government. So, you should know what is comparative politics. So, I guess now it's well clear to you. It's clear to you that comparative politics is nothing else but it is a systematic study in which we try to compare the diverse political system in the world. We try to find out the differences, the similarities, the regularities which are there in various forms of government and in the political behavior as well as in the diverse political institutions. Okay, so this is what is comparative politics. Then when we have talked about comparative politics, we should go with the scope of comparative politics. See, if you are facing any problem, with the sound or with the screen out here, you should tell it immediately. And the second thing is that because we are in an online live class, I would request each and every one of you. See, you are trying to build your career. So career can only be built when you are disciplined with yourself. I am disciplined when I am into my teaching profession. For entire 2 hours, our only focus will be political science and nothing else. Jokes apart, our only focus will be political science. That means we won't divert our things into something else. Okay, our only focus will be political science and political science. So what should be your focus as a student, and that too an online live student? Your focus should also be to listen to me, to write it down whatever is important. So that's why you should have a pen and a copy in front of you. And you people are mature enough to know that these classes are so important for you. If you have joined these classes, you have joined these classes to learn something. And we are here to help you out. So that's why you shouldn't waste your time by just sitting there idly, casually, lazily and listening. You should be active with you. Keep a bottle of water in front of you, as I always keep it in front of me. Okay, because I have to speak the whole 2 hours. I need something to drink, some water to have. So that's why you should also have a bottle of water so that you don't get up all the time, and have your pen and a copy in front of you so that the entire 2 hours you are with me exclusively and I am with you exclusively. Okay, chalo chalte hain. Next, go for the second thing here. Now we have to discuss about the scope of comparative politics. Now, what will be the scope of comparative politics? Scope means where do we study comparative politics? How does it help us? So comparative politics is all about political structure. That means when we study comparative politics, this study includes the political structures, that is the study of all formal and informal governmental and extra-governmental institutions and their structures. That means in comparative politics, we are trying to study political structures. These political structures can be formal as well as informal, that too governmental as well as non-governmental political structures. Second one is functional. That means the scope of comparative politics says that comparative politics is functional. Functional in the sense we try to gain knowledge. We try to gain knowledge about how the formal and informal institutes work within the country. We try to gain knowledge as how the formal and informal institutes, they work within the country. That's why it's functional. Then comparative politics talks about the study of political behavior. Political behavior means what is the voting behavior, what is the participation, what is the leadership, what is the elite behavior, mass politics and all. That means in comparative politics, we talk about political behavior. Political behavior with regard to vote, political behavior with regard to elite behavior, what is the mass participation in politics, what is the people's participation in politics, what about the leadership, their recruitment and all. This is what is political behavior. Then we also study the similarity and differences. As I said you in the definition itself, that in comparative politics, the most important thing is that we have to find out what are the similarities and what are the differences between various political institutions and various forms of government. Now, why are these similarities taking place? Why are these differences taking place? This is only what we study in comparative politics. So, comparative politics next scope is that how two countries are similar and how they are different from each other. As well as we also study all political systems, all political systems in the sense कि whatever system, political system is there in a country, with regard to that, all political systems we study, and whatever political system is there, what is the political institution with that system involved, what is the structure in that system involved, it's all comparative politics. So in comparative politics, the scope is only with regard to political institutions, political structures, political functions, and political behavior, as well as similarities and dissimilarities with regard to political institutions and governments, and so on. The scope can be never ending, but what I have done is that whatever are the important scopes I have written here. Now, as I said you, we are going to today, our main focus will be not the definition and the scope. I don't have to teach you the definition and the scope. The definition and the scope, you can understand it yourself. But yes, because I had to start the topic, I went with the definition and the scope. But what about the most important part of this chapter, of this unit, comparative politics? That is the approaches to the study of comparative politics. Now, the first approach to the study of comparative politics is institutional approach. And we are going to talk about the characteristics of this institutional approach. Now, when we are talking about institutional approach, we are talking about political institutions. We'll focus on the political institutions. Let's look into the characteristics. See, this is for the first time I am coming with a topic in front of you. Now, with the presentation which I have, you can judge that how clearly things I am presenting in front of you. Because any teaching is only productive when it can reach your head. And if it reaches your head, it can go in your heart. That is what is teaching. That means things should be explained in a simple and straightforward language, not in a teda-meda language like a jalebi. So that's why what I've done is that I've used simple words to make you understand each and every approach. And I guarantee that today, whichever approach we are going to study, you will feel it happy and you will feel satisfied that you have known that approach. And later on, just refer to the book which you have in your which you have with you with regard to the BA or MA books, and then read that approaches, and you will see that the entire concept of the approaches is clear for you. It's a guarantee from my side. So when we go with the institutional approach, we have to talk about the characteristics. Now let's go with the characteristics one by one. It says that the institutional approach is a perspective used in the comparative politics to analyze political system. Perspective means it's a way ahead. It's a phenomena. It's a method by which. So here the institutional approach, what it does is that it is used in comparative politics so as to analyze political system. So the institutional approach is basically trying to analyze what? Political system. So the first point is that this approach will try to analyze political system. Try to analyze, try to find out the entire political system. And while analyzing the political system, it focuses on what? It focuses on the formal structure. It focuses on the formal rules. It focuses on the organizations within the political system. That means when institutional approach is trying to analyze political system, so analyze means what? Analyze means to study in depth, to find out everything. So when it's trying to analyze political system, its analysis is focused on what? Its analysis is focused on the formal structure of that political system, the rules of that political system, the organizations within the political system. These all are analyzed. Then here, institutions means what? Here, the political institution means the government bodies, the legal system, the political parties, the bureaucracies, and the other formal entities. So, in institutional approach, when we talk about the institutions are political institutions. And these political institutions are the governments. Whatever government is there, the government is a political institution, plus the legal system, that one, plus political parties, as well as the bureaucracies and other formal entities. Then the approach emphasizes means lays stress on the importance of institutions in shaping political behavior and outcome. That means this institutional approach, when it is trying to analyze political system, then while analyzing political system, it does an in-depth analysis with regard to the formal structure, with regard to the rules, with regard to the organizations that are within the political system, and it also talks about the institutions. It also talks about the institutions. And what is the importance of these institutions? First of all, you should know that what are these institutions? The institutions are the government bodies, the legal system, the political parties, the bureaucracies, and the other formal entities. Now, these institutions, why they are so important? Because they help in shaping the political behavior and outcome. So this is what this institutional approaches says, that if this institutional approach is laying emphasis on institutions like political parties, institutions like government, legal system, bureaucracy, and it is giving importance to these institutions. Why? Because they help in shaping the political behavior as well as they help in better outcome of that. Next thing, it examines the functions, interactions and dynamics of institutions within a political system. That means within that, when it is analyzing, in that analysis, it also analyzes the functions of the political system, the functions of various institutions. See, because there is a political system, that political system consists of political institutions. You have to know this, that there is a political system, and in that political system, there are political institutions. So, political institutions are a part of political system, or the political institutions themselves, they combine together and they make the political system. So here, when we are talking about political system analysis, then it means the institution or the entire thing is being analyzed. Okay, so here the institutional approach, it talks about the analysis, the analysis of the political institution functions, the functions of the political institutions, the functions of the political institutions, whatever interactions they have. That means what is the interaction of the bureaucracy and the government? What is the interaction of the bureaucracy, government and legal system? So whatever interactions they have between them, that is also examined. Plus the dynamics of the institutions. Dynamics, that means what is the behavioral changing? What is, see, dynamics. Dynamics comes from the word dynamic. Now tell me, can a political atmosphere remain the same? No. Can anything remain the same? No. So everything is dynamic. So the institutions need to be dynamic. That means the political institutions, they need to be dynamic. For example, the Congress party which was in 1885, can it be the same Congress party into 2024? Not at all. So that's what it is saying, that this institutional approach, it talks about the functions, the interaction and the dynamics of institutions within the political system. Plus, the institutional approach seeks to understand how institutions affects governance, decision-making process, and polity outcome. That means their entire focus is on the study of that political institution. Because if they completely study the political institution, then it means they have studied the entire political system. And here what I'm saying, that the institutional approach seeks to study what? Yes, seeks to understand what? How institutions, how these political institutions, and what are these political institutions? Government bodies, legal system, political parties, bureaucracies, and other formal organs. How these institutional systems, how these institutions, they affect what? Governance, decision-making processes, and policy outcome. And last, the characteristic says that it considers historical development, design, and effectiveness of institutions. That means it says that every institution has an historical development. Every political institution has an historical development. Historical development means it has changed itself from histories. That means long back was its inception, but now today you can see there is a historical development. Look at the legal system when it came and look at the legal system today. Is it static? Is it stagnant? No, there is an historical development with regard to the legal system. One more institution is the political party. What about the political party? What about their roles? What about their functions? What about their structure? Are they the same? No, there has been an historical development. So the institutional approach, it considers historical approach, design, and effectiveness of the institutions. So this is what is institutional approach. I guess it must be clear to each and every one of you that institutional approach is nothing else but it is focusing on political system analysis. And in this political system analysis, it is trying to analyze, it's trying to talk about the significance of political institutions in the political system. And these political institutions are government, bureaucracy, legal system, political parties, and other formal organizations. Plus these legal systems, what are their they try to study their formal rules, they try to study lot of things are studied. See, they try to study their formal structure, their rules, their organizations which are there within the things. ठीक है, तो ये तुम्हारा institutional approach है. And it also examines the functions, the interactions, and the dynamics of this institution. So in all, we can say that this basic institutional approach, it's trying to understand, it's trying to find out how these institutions, they are affecting governance, decision-making process, and policy outcome. Okay, so that is what is the characteristic. Any doubt? I bet in simple terms you must have understood the very concept of institutional approach. Okay, so this is what is the concept of the institutional approach. Next comes with regard to the criticism. See, the institutional approach, it was criticized. And on what grounds it was criticized? The critics argue that institutional approach tends to overlook informal practices and power dynamics that influence politics. That means we have seen in the characteristic of institutional approach that it's only focusing on the political institution, that too the formal political system with its formal political institutions. So the critics say that the first thing is that this institutional approach, it is overlooking this institutional approach it is overlooking informal practices. That means whatever informal practices are there in the political system, it's overlooking those informal practices, plus the power dynamics which influences politics. You cannot see that in institutional approach, the power dynamics is being studied. The power dynamics is not studied, plus the informal practices, they are kept away. Second thing is that it may oversimplify complex political phenomena by focusing solely on formal structures and rules. That means the critics say that the political system is very complex. It is very complex, and you can say it's a very complex political phenomena. But still, they criticize the institutional approach on the ground that they have only talked about formal structure. They have only talked about formal structure and formal rules with regard to political system, as a result of which they have tried to oversimplify the complex political phenomena. Second thing. Third criticism is that this approach has been criticized for its limited ability to capture cultural, societal, and individual factors that shape politics. That means the critics say that in institutional approach, there is no mention of cultural factors, there is no mention of individual factors, there is no mention of societal factors. That means the individual thinkers have not mentioned, have not taken into account the individual factors, the cultural factors, and the societal factors which shape politics. This is the third criticism. The fourth criticism is on the grounds that institutions alone do not determine political outcomes. Other factors such as leadership and societal attitudes play a significant role. See, the entire institutional approach, it was said that whatever is the political behavior, whatever is the political system, it has been influenced by the formal political institutions. That means they are giving a lot of importance to the formal political institutions. But the critics say that only institutions cannot determine political outcome. There are other factors also. Like in the previous line, I had said that only institution side is there. What about the cultural factors? What about the individual societal factors? They are not taken. So here also they are saying that institution alone cannot determine political outcome. Instead of that, what about other factors like leadership? Leadership also tries to influence political outcome. In the same way, societal attitudes. What is the attitude of the society towards a political party, towards the politics? That also plays a significant role. And the last, the institutional approach may be less adaptable to dynamic and changing political context. That means it's not that dynamic, it's not that adaptable. So we have seen that institutional approach, it was criticized first on the grounds that it overlooked informal practices as well as power dynamics. It overlooked informal practices as well as power dynamics that influence politics, number one. Number two, it tries to oversimplify complex political phenomena by only talking about formal structure and rules. Third, it was criticized that it had limited ability to capture cultural factors, individual factors, societal factors that are also important to shape politics. That means it never covered these factors, cultural, societal and individual factors. Fourth point of criticism was that this approach only talked about the significance of institutions with regard to the shaping of, with regard to the political role. But the critics argue that only institution alone cannot determine political outcome. Apart from that, there are some factors like leadership is one of the factors. Societal attitude is one of the factors. Now, these can also play a significant role. And the last one is that this approach, it's less adaptable as well as it's less dynamic with regard to the changing political context. ठीक है, I guess सबको अब क्लियर हो गया. हाँ जी, it's clear. Let's go with the conclusion. देखो, always I have said you that first I'll talk about the characteristics, then I'll talk about the criticism. In characteristics only you can understand each and everything. Then we'll go with the criticism and then we'll go with the conclusion. Conclusion is also very important. Now, conclusion, what it says: the institutional approach provides valuable insights into the role and impact of formal structure and organization in politics. That means from this entire thing, what we conclude is that the formal structure, what we conclude is that the institutional approach is providing valuable insights. It's providing valuable insights means valuable information with regard to the impact of formal structure and organization in politics. That means the institutional approach is basically telling that it is the formal structure and it is the formal organization or institutions which play a very significant role in politics. Number one. Number two, it helps us to understand how institutions shape political behavior and decisions making processes and policy outcome. Matlab, second conclusion is that with this approach we are able to understand the role of institutions. What are the various roles of the institution, political institution? That is, the political institution helps to shape political behavior. It helps in the decision making process as well as it helps in the policy outcome. So this is the role. Role is what? It helps in shaping political behavior, decision making and political outcome. Then, however, it is important to recognize the limitations and criticism of the institutional approach. Combining the institutional approach with other perspectives and methodologies can lead to more comprehensive understanding of comparative politics. Despite its criticism, the institutional approach remains a significant and widely used perspective in the study of political system. That means there are criticisms. So the entire conclusion is that the institutional approach tries to talk about the significance of political structures. It tries to talk about the significance of formal structures and formal institutions in politics. Plus, it also says that these institutions play a great role, like these institutions try to shape the political behavior. It also helps in decision making process as well as it also helps in political outcome. So the overall institutional approach is giving importance to political institutions, and that to formal political institutions. That means these political institutions are formal political institutions which are playing a very big role when it comes to political behavior, when it comes to governance, when it comes to all the various government activities, when it comes to policy outcomes, when it comes to decision making, everything. Okay, but at the same time they were criticized. ठीक है, चलो next. Let's come with the second approach. You must have, do you remember this approach, systems approach? Now, what is the systems approach? Let's go with the characteristics. The systems approach is a theoretical framework. It's a theoretical framework, just like that in institutional. It was a political system analysis. So here it is a theoretical framework used in comparative politics to study political systems as complex interconnected entities. That means here in the systems approach, we are trying to study comparative politics, and in this system approach of comparative politics, we are trying to study political systems as complex, as interconnected entities. That means it's basically a theoretical framework. एक framework बनाया हुआ है for systems approach, and this is a theoretical framework. And in this theoretical framework, this framework is very complex, but it's interconnected. That's what it's trying to say. And it views political system as dynamic, that means always changing, self-regulating system. Self-regulating means like I can say I am self-regulating myself. Self-regulating means I am looking into my own affairs. I know what is good for me, what is bad for me. I know when to get up, when to sleep. I know what to study, what not to study. That is self-regulating. So here in this system approach, it says that the political systems are dynamic. They keep on changing. Plus they are self-regulating systems with various components and subsystems. That means they are self-regulating systems, and they have various components and they have various subsystems. Then this approach also emphasizes, see here they are talking about interconnected entities. That means there is a theoretical framework which is complex, but they all are interconnected entities. Okay, and so when they are talking about interconnected, it comes here. That means this system approach, it emphasizes the interdependence and interaction between different elements within a political system. Got it? See, complex, when does a thing become complex? A thing becomes complex when it is dynamic, when there are interactions taking place, when there are interdependence. That means here it's saying that within a political system, whatever are the subsystems and all, these subsystems are self-regulating systems, but they are interdependent, as well as there are interactions which are taking place between different elements. And it considers inputs, throughputs, outputs, feedback, and the environment as the key component of the system. So the key component of the system according to systems approach is input, throughput, output, feedback, and the environment. So overall in this page, let's see what we'll do is that when we complete all the approaches, because many questions come from this approach part, please remember, many questions, many means at least 5 to 6. So 5 to 6 questions means a lot. So you have to know about these approaches. So what I'll do is that when we complete all the approaches, I'll try to compare the approaches in a tabular form. And when we'll try to compare the approaches in the tabular form, it will be more clear for you. Okay? मतलब और ज्यादा क्लियर हो जाएगा आपके लिए और एक भी क्वेश्चन आपसे कभी नहीं छूटेगा. ठीक है, चलो लेट्स कम इन टू द टॉपिक. सो सिस्टम्स अप्रोच में कैरेक्टरिस्टिक नंबर 1 वाज व्हाट? इट इज अ थियोरेटिकल फ्रेमवर्क. And this theoretical framework is what it is used in comparative politics to study political systems as complex and interconnected entities. So it's trying to study a theoretical framework. Its system approach is a theoretical framework which is trying to study political science. Not political science, I'm really very sorry. Trying to study political system as complex and interconnected entities. Second point it says is that the political system is dynamic and it's self-regulating system, as well as it has a lot of components and subsystems. That means it's self-regulating, it's dynamic with lot of components in it as well as subsystems in it. And next point it says that this approach emphasizes on the interdependence as well as interactions between the various elements within a political system. That means within that theoretical framework, see here political system is what? A theoretical framework. Within that theoretical framework, there are various elements. Now these elements can be subsystems also, can be components also. Now within these elements, there is an interdependentness. That means everyone is interdependent with each other. Plus there is an interconnectedness. And when there is an interconnectedness, then there is an interaction. Interdependence and interconnectedness results to interaction. So there is, this approach emphasizes on the interdependence as well as interaction within the elements of the different elements of a political system. And what it considers, what are the key components of this system? The key components are input, throughput, output, feedback, environment. These are the important components of this system. Chalo. And last but not the least, the system approach analyzes how political system adapt and respond to internal and external changes. See, I said you, in systems approach, they have considered political system as dynamic. Dynamic means what? Dynamic means which is changing. The environment which changes. Nothing is static, everything is changing. When everything is changing, then obviously everything is dynamic. We should also be dynamic. That means we should change ourselves with changes in the society, with changes in everything, so that we can adapt ourselves. सर्वाइव तभी कर सकते हो एक जगह पे जब अपने आप को वहां का बनाओगे, अपने आप को वहां से अलग रखोगे, तो यू कैन नेवर सर्वाइव. दैट इज द मेन फिलॉसफी. तो यहां पे भी what the systems approach is saying is that the political system is dynamic, and when it is dynamic, then what it is trying to analyze, it's trying to analyze how this dynamic political system is responding to the internal as well as external changes. And it also tries to understand the functioning, stability and development of the political systems. Hanji, clear? So the systems approach is basically a theoretical framework. Theoretical framework of what? Theoretical framework of the political system, which is complex, interconnected entities. Plus, this political system is dynamic, self-regulating with lot of components and subsystems. It also emphasizes, the system approach also emphasizes on the interdependence and interactions between different elements within a political system. Plus, it considers the key components. The key components of the system are input, throughput, output, feedback, and the environment. And last but not the least, it tries to analyze how political systems adapt to the internal as well as external changes. And it also tries to understand the function, the stability, and the development of political system. So this is what is system approach. But in systems approach, we have to study this David Aston's system approach. Now, David Aston, he is a pioneer about the system approach. That means political science में अगर किसी को pioneer बोला जाता है systems approach का, तो it's David Aston. And we have to study his David Aston's system analysis. Okay, चलो copy रखे हो सामने. You all have kept your copies in front of you. Write it down. The first thing, a system analysis of political life. किसने लिखा था? David Aston. So who wrote what? ये वही है. They'll give you a system analysis of political life. कब हुआ था? 1995. And who wrote it? David Aston. चलो पढ़ते. Now David Aston pioneered the systems analysis in political science. मतलब political science में, if someone pioneered the system analysis, pioneered means he gave the concept of system analysis, it was David Aston. Now he had written a book and his work was called as a system analysis of political life. In this work, he introduced a new concept. He introduced a new concept for understanding political phenomena. And this new concept was nothing else but it was the system analysis. That means David Aston, he introduced a new phenomena. He introduced a new concept for understanding political phenomena. New concept for understanding political phenomena. And what was that new concept? That new concept was systems approach or systems analysis. Not approach, systems analysis. And about this new concept, he had written in his book, in his written work, that is a systems analysis of political life, 1995. Now, what does he talk about this new concept? He says that he lays emphasis that the need for scientific method in political analysis and rejected normative approach. See, normative is what? Normative is where there is rule of thumb. Normative is where there is rule of thumb, where there is assumptions. But here, Aston is emphasizing, Aston is giving importance that political analysis should be based on scientific experimentation. That means there must be scientific methods in political analysis rather than normative approaches. So he defined politics as what? He defined politics as the authoritative allocation of values and a political system as a set of interaction for the value allocation. Authoritative allocation of values. Here authoritative means what? Authoritative means power driven. So there is a power driven allocation of values. Whatever values are allocated, that is authoritative, and political system is nothing else but it is a set of interaction for value allocation. That means when this value is allocated, then there is a set of interactions taking place, and that set of interactions during value allocation is nothing else but it is political system. See, very, very important. His definition of politics, who said what? Okay, this is what? Ki Aston, he gives the definition of politics in his system analysis. First of all, he says that the political analysis, it must be based on scientific method rather than normative approaches. And at the same time, when he said it, that it must be based on scientific methods, then at the very same time he said that what is politics? Then he defines politics as what? He uses the word authoritative allocation of values. Values in the sense, whatever values are there, what are resources are there, authoritative allocation of values. And in this authoritative allocation of values, when the values are allocated, then there is interaction. And that interaction is nothing else but it is political system. So politics is authoritative allocation of values, and political system is what? It's nothing else but it is a set of interaction for value allocation. So in Aston's view, political system as dynamic and self-regulating with a coping mechanism to handle disturbances. That means in this way, Aston viewed political system as what? Political system as dynamic. That means it's never same. It will change. But it is self-regulating and it has a coping mechanism. And it has a coping mechanism to handle whatever disturbances are there. And he says that because see, according to the system analysis, the key elements are what? The key elements are input, throughput, output, feedback and environment. So Aston uses the word feedback. Aston says feedback plays a crucial role in transmitting information between the environment and the political system. That means environment and the political system, इनके बीच में जो transfer हो रहा है, whatever is being transferred, that transmitting information में, it is the feedback which is playing a very important role. That means the environment is telling something to the political system, the political system is doing it, and what is the feedback? You can get it. So feedback is nothing else but it is a very important, it plays a crucial role in transmitting information between the environment and the political system. This is what is Aston's initially. चलो फिर से एक बार पढ़ते हैं, इधर उधर नहीं करते हैं, दोबारा let's go into this. We are talking about system analysis. And who was the pioneer of the system analysis? David Aston. E-A-S-T-O-N. David Aston. And what was the name of his work? His name of his work was A System Analysis of Political Life. A System Analysis of Political Life, 1965. And in that system analysis of political life, he introduced a new concept for understanding political phenomena. And what was that new concept? That new concept was system analysis. And according to him, he said that there is a need for scientific method to study political analysis. Yeah, there is a need of scientific method in political analysis rather than normative traditional methods. That means normative approaches are not needed, whereas he laid emphasis on scientific method in political analysis. And then he gives the definition of politics. He says politics is authoritative allocation of values, and as such he says that political system is a set of interactions for value allocation. Then Aston's views about political system is what? Aston views that political system is dynamic, it's self-regulating with coping mechanism for handling disturbances. Then he says that feedback, one of the key element is feedback. He says that feedback plays a very crucial role in transmitting information between the environment and the political system. चलो आगे और क्या कहता है? Let's see. Aston says that the political system may face stress. The political system may face stresses, including demand stress and support stress, which require balance and adjustment. That means in political system there will be stress. Stress means tension, demand stress, support stress, every type of stress will be there. But what we have to do is that we have to bring a balance and equilibrium between these stress. And balance can only be brought by adjustment. Then he talks about structural basis. He says structural basis such as elections, political parties, public beliefs are the essential for the survival of political system. And last, he says that Aston's theory portrays the political system as input-output mechanism dealing with political decision and activities. So it's all about his belief. It's all about his own new concept of political system, that is systems analysis. Okay, it's all what is? It's systems analysis. And in this system analysis, he says that political system may face stress like demand stress, support stress. But what is very important is that it needs balance as well as adjustment. Apart from that, he says that there are structural bases, and these structural bases are very essential for the survival of political system. And what are these structural bases? Structural bases are the political parties, are the public beliefs, are the elections, which are very essential for political system survival. And last, he says that the entire Aston's theory is all about a political system, which is an input-output mechanism. What is that? It's an input-output mechanism which deals with political decision and activities. Okay, so it's an input-output mechanism. पूरा clear हो गया? David Aston का politics का he gave the definition, authoritative allocation of values, plus political science का भी political system का भी definition दिया. He said when politics is an authoritative allocation of values, so political system is nothing else but it is a set of interaction for value allocation. And apart from that, he said that political system is dynamic, self-regulating with a coping mechanism to handle disturbances. That means there is a mechanism which will handle the disturbances. And the key elements of this political system are feedback, then environment, then input, then throughput and output. And after that, he says that there are a lot of stresses in political system, demand stress, support stress, but what we need is that there should be a balance between all these stress and there should be an adjustment. And last, he says that there are structural bases. These structural bases are very important for the survival of political system. And what are these structural bases? These structural bases are political parties, elections, as well as public beliefs. And last, he says that according to the entire Easton's system analysis, political system is an input-output mechanism. It's what? It's an input-output mechanism which deals with political decisions as well as activities. ठीक है जी? So we have done with David Aston's system analysis. किसी को कोई दिक्कत? Now we have only gone with the characteristics of his system analysis. क्या नाम था इस बुक का? What was the name of his book? 1965 में लिखा था. The name of the book was A System Analysis of Political Life. A System Analysis of Political Life. ठीक है? चलो. What was the criticism for David Aston's system analysis? Critics argue that the system approach oversimplifies complex political phenomena by reducing them to abstract concepts and models. See, I have come with institutional. यहाँ पे भी institutional approach, it was criticized. there was a criticism. And what was that criticism? That it's trying to oversimplify the complex things. यहाँ पे देखो, हाँ, oversimplify complex political phenomena. Why? Because the institutional approach was only focusing on the formal structure and its role. ठीक है? It's oversimplifying the political. And what about the systems approach? That is the system analysis of David Aston. इसमें भी critics, what they say is that this systems approach is oversimplifying complex political phenomena. It is also oversimplifying complex political phenomena. Why? Because they are reducing this political system to abstract concepts and models. That means systems analysis को एक model का रूप दे दिया. If you have your book in front of you, there is a model. There must be a, what to say, framework of this Aston's system analysis. एक model होगा in which there is input, output and everything. So the critics say that ये जो complex political phenomena है, Aston has oversimplified it by reducing it to abstract concept and models. Plus, he neglected important things like cultural, historical and individual factors that influence politics, same as the institutional approach was criticized. It was said that it is not looking into the cultural, societal and individual factors. Here also they are saying that individual factor, historical and cultural factors which influence politics, they have been neglected. Then they also criticize the question that assumption of system equilibrium and stability. System equilibrium and stability means what? Aston talks about the stresses, whether demand stress, support stress, and he says that there should be a balance. We should try to make balance of it. Adjustments करने चाहिए. So the critics say that there is the assumption of system equilibrium and stability, arguing that political systems are often characterized by conflict and power struggles. That means the critics say that how can you bring equilibrium, how can you bring balance, adjustments when the political system, the very characteristic of political system is conflict as well as power struggle. So the critics, they question on the assumption of system equilibrium and stability. And last, the system approach have been accused of lacking empirical precision and being difficult to test and validate. That means they say that there are it's lacking empirical precision, whereas it's very difficult to test and validate. It talks about scientific method. It talks about the need of scientific method, but it's very difficult to test as validate. So on these grounds, the systems approach or Eastern system analysis was criticized. Once again, first one, it says that the critics say that his approach oversimplified complex political phenomena just by reducing them to abstract concepts and models. Second, they say that they have neglected cultural, historical as well as individual factors that influence politics. Then they have also been criticized on the assumptions of the system and equilibrium and stability. And they have said that the political system, it is characterized by conflict and power struggle. So how can this system equilibrium and stability take place? And the last one is that this approach talks about scientific method, but it lacks empirical precision, and that too, it's very difficult to test and validate. So when we conclude with the system approach, we can say that it is providing a valuable framework. Valuable what? Valuable theoretical framework for understanding political system as interconnected and adaptive entities. That means we are trying this system analysis. It has provided a valuable theoretical framework which helps us in understanding political system as interactive, political system as interconnected, interdependence and adaptive entities. Plus, it also offers insight into how political systems respond to internal and external pressures and maintain stability. That means this systems approach talks about the internal as well as external pressures or changes, and how do the political system tackle with these internal and external pressures, and how do they adjust to that, and balance is created. That is also there. And last, however, the approach should be used alongside other perspectives and methodologies. This system approach should be used with other methodologies so that we can understand comparative politics, just like institutional approach should be used with other. Then critics' concern should be considered and the limitations of the system approach should be acknowledged. Overall, the systems approach remains influential in the study of political system, but its application requires careful consideration of its strength and weaknesses. That means, yes, it is trying to study political system, and it is very important in studying political system, but still, whenever we apply the systems analysis approach, we need to be careful, considering what are its strength as well as weakness. So we have done with two approaches. One is the system approach as well as the, just a minute, I missed something. One thing, wait. To delete this page. Okay, yes. So we started with the definition of comparative politics. Just a 5-minute recap. And why this recap is always necessary? A recap is always necessary so that everything freshen up in your mind. Okay, so every time you will have a recap. So once again, we studied comparative politics. What is comparative politics? A systematic study. And what is studying? Comparison of the diverse political systems in the world. And we also talk about the different political systems, their differences, their similarities, and how developmental changes are coming between them. Then Edward Freeman and Michael Curtis, their definitions we talk about. Edward Freeman talks about comparative analysis, and Michael Curtis talks about the significant irregularities, similarities, differences which are there. Then we talked about the scope, that is the scope of comparative politics. Its scope is, it talks about all political structures, it talks about political functions, it talks about the study of political behavior, the similarity and dissimilarities, as well as the study of all political system. Then we came with the first approach, that was the institutional approach. This institutional approach is basically this institutional approach is used in comparative politics to analyze political system. And it focuses on what? It focuses on formal structures, formal rules, formal organizations which are within the political system. And in this formal organization, we can say formal institutions also, which are within the political system. And these institutions or organizations which are formal are government bodies, legal systems, political systems, bureaucracies, and other formal entities. Plus, this institutional approach, it also emphasizes on the importance of institutions in shaping political behavior and outcome. Plus, it also examines the various functions of the institution, the interactions and the dynamics of the institution within the political system. So, according to this institutional approach, it is said that if you are trying to understand, seeks to understand how institutions affect, how these political institutions are affecting governance, are affecting decision making process as well as policy making. So It considers historical development, design and effectiveness. And there are criticism. Criticism means it only tries to talk about formal. So it is left out. It has left out informal practices and power dynamics, which also influence politics. Apart from that, it has oversimplified complex political phenomena by only focusing on formal structure and rules. Plus, this is also criticized that its limited ability to capture cultural, social and individual factors that shape politics. And also it's argued that these institutions alone cannot determine political outcome. There are other factors like leadership, societal attitudes, they also play a very role. Plus it is less adaptable to dynamic and changing political context. But what about the systems approach? Here the systems approach is trying to give a theoretical framework. It's trying to give a theoretical framework which is used in comparative politics to study political system which is complex interconnected entities. ठीक है, मतलब this is a theoretical, it's trying to give a theoretical framework in comparative politics, and as a result political systems are, study of political systems are done as complex interconnected entities. Then here it views political system as dynamic, self-regulating system with various components and subsystems. Plus it also emphasizes, this analysis, this approach also emphasizes on interdependence, interactions between various elements within a political system. Plus the key elements of political system according to this approach is input, throughput, output, feedback, environment. These are the famous here. And feedback is very important according to this, and this system approach also says that the analysis also says how political system adapt and respond to the internal and external changes. That means whatever internal external changes are there, according to that, how do the political system adapt to them. And it also seeks to understand the functioning, stability and development of political systems. But when we are talking about system approach, we cannot forget the role played by David Aston. David Aston was considered as the pioneer of system analysis in political science. In his work, A System Analysis in Political Life, 1965, he talks about a new concept for understanding political phenomena, and this new concept is system analysis. And he emphasizes that there is a need for scientific method to study political analysis. Yeah, there is a need of scientific method in political analysis rather than the traditional approaches. So with that he defines politics. He says politics is authoritative allocation of values, and political system, he says that political system is a set of interaction of value allocation. Set of interactions of value allocation. Then he has viewed political system as dynamic, self-regulating with mechanisms by which whatever disturbances are there, that can be corrected. Plus he also says, David Aston, that feedback plays a very crucial role in transmitting information between the environment and the political system. And the last, he says that there are a lot of stresses which the political system faces. Now they can be demand stress, they can be support stress, but there should be a balance between the stress and adjustments. And the last, he says that structural bases, they are very important for the survival of political system. And these structural bases, he calls it as elections, he calls political parties as structural bases, and public beliefs. And last, he says that his entire political system is an input-output mechanism. It's an input-output mechanism dealing with political decisions and activities. But still, it was criticized. Why? Because the critics say that Aston has oversimplified complex political phenomena by reducing them to abstract models and concepts. by reducing them to abstract models and concepts. That means the political system is not a model which you have presented, they are saying. It's not an input-output thing. So they say that he has reduced them to abstract model and concepts. Second, his critics say that he has neglected the cultural, the historical as well as the individual factors that influence politics. Plus his very assumption of system equilibrium, that has also been criticized. They say that political system is characterized by power struggle, it is characterized by conflicts, then how can the system equilibrium be achieved? And last, they say that it's lacking empirical precisions as well as it's being difficult to test and validate. Okay. So all the two approaches in your mind. Any doubts with regard to these two approaches? You can come up with your doubts. Yes, any doubts? Please come up with your doubts. Then we'll move into the third approach. No? Okay. Let's move into the third approach. That is structural functionalism. See, I should tell you today is your task. What is the task today in front of you? 3 approaches. Don't go by the meaning, don't go by the scope and all. Just start with approach number 1, institutional approach. Whatever book you have, whichsoever book you have, don't go by the author. All of them write the same informations. Only is that the word changes and the presentation changes. So whatever book you have and you have read that book in your earlier classes, like in your BAs and in your MAs, just read that book. In that book, the theoretical approach as well as the systems approach, and that too Eastern's system analysis. And whatever model he has made, just try to make it and try to know it, that what he has written in that model. Because that can also be a question. The model can come and there can be a question mark and they can say, what is that in that question mark? So that's why, please remember. So let's come to the structural functionalism. Now structural functionalism is also an approach. And in this approach of comparative politics, it's focusing on what? It's focusing on explaining the functions of political structure. See, in institutional approach, their focus was on formal political institutions. That's it. In system analysis, their focus was on theoretical framework. That is, the political system as a theoretical framework. And also, they talked about a need of scientific method in political analysis. Okay. That is what. And it's an input-output mechanism. Now in structural functionalism, what the approach in comparative politics is focusing on is that explaining the functions of political structures. Here, the functions of political structures are taken into consideration. Their functions are studied, analyzed, and as a result of which this approach developed. Then here what happens? In this approach, there is comparison taking place between political system by understanding the functions performed by different structures within those systems. Plus, the structures within a political system are arrangements that perform functions which can be simple or complex. And functions are observed consequences that contribute to the adaptation of or readjustment of a system. See, it's all related to functions. Do not get confused. Do not get confused. I read all the lines. Why? Because all the lines are interrelated to each other. First, when we talk about structural functionalism, here the word function is coming and the word structure is coming. So, political structures, here we are talking about which structure? Political structures. So this political structure is tried to analyzed. That means we are trying to analyze the political structure according to their function. Sorry. We are trying to analyze the political structure according to their function. So that means every political system has their political structure, and every political structure has their own function. So when we compare all these political structures according to their function, then that is what is this approach talking about. ठीक है, सिंपल एंड क्लियर, सिंपल एंड क्लियर, यही वो बात कर रहे हैं. That means the structural functionalism approach is trying to focus on explaining the functions of political structure, and in this they compare political systems by understanding the function performed by different structures. That means they are trying to understand political system. And how political system is being trying to understand? They are trying to understand it by comparing the functions performed by different political structure. That means अलग अलग political structure अलग अलग functions perform कर रहे हैं, तो अलग अलग functions जो वो perform कर रहे हैं उनको जब हम compare करेंगे तो we will try to study political system, we will try to compare political systems. And whatever structures are there, these structures are within the political system. That means a political system has political structures, and these political structures are nothing else but they are the arrangements. They are the arrangements that perform functions which can be simple or complex. देखो बहुत simple. Institutional, what they said, within the political system there are political institutions. Systematic analysis, what they said, within the political system, it is dynamic, it is interconnectedness, and there are various subcenters, subsystems and elements. ये वो बोल रहे हैं system analysis. और ये क्या बोल रहे हैं structural functionalism, कि within a political system there are political structures, and these political structures are nothing else but they are arrangements. And arrangements of what? Arrangements to perform functions, and these functions which they perform or the arrangements can be simple as well as complex. ठीक है? So functions जो भी हैं, they are observed consequences that contribute to the adaptation or readjustment of the system. That means whatever functions they are talking about, these functions are observed consequences. That means if a political structure is performing a function, देखो प्लीज ध्यान से सुनना, स्ट्रक्चरल फंक्शनलिज्म क्या कह रहा है? दे आर टॉकिंग अबाउट पॉलिटिकल स्ट्रक्चर, एंड एवरी पॉलिटिकल स्ट्रक्चर, what they do, they have what? Arrangements, and according to the arrangements they perform functions which can be simple or complex. अब वो functions की बात कर रहे हैं. They are talking about functions which the political structure performs. These functions are observed consequences. That means observed consequences. Observed consequences means whatever is observed, that is a function. अगर कुछ चीज observed नहीं रहेगा, then how can this be a function? For example, if I have a remote and if I press this button, the AC will switch off, then this is the observed consequence of this report. So with this observed consequence, what I say, that the function of this remote is to switch on and off this AC. यही बात है कि functions को they give a definition. They say that functions are observed consequences that contribute to adaptation. Either you adapt that function or readjustment of a system, or you reject that function and you readjust the system. ठीक है? Clear? That means political system has political structures. Each political structure has their own functions which they are performing. ठीक है? मतलब they have their own functions according to their arrangements, which can be simple as well as complex. So the functions are what? Observed consequences And these observed consequences can be adaptable or they can be readjustment of a system. Last क्या बोलते हैं कि structural functional approach gained prominence in the mid 1960s and became a dominant mode of explanation in political science. That means mid 1960s के बाद this very structural functional approach gained prominence. Okay. And who were the prominent scholars of this approach? It was Radcliffe Brown, Malinowski, Marion Levy Jr., Robert K. Merton, Talcott Parson, David Aston, William C. Mitchell, David Apter, Gabriel A. Almond are notable political scientists associated with structural functionalism. That means these are the names of the scholars who are associated with structural functionalism. Now, when we talk about Aston, David Aston, he gave the system analysis, but Aston also talked about structural functionalism. He said Aston focused on the stability of political system. Mitchell, he viewed the political system as subsystem of social system. Apter, he studied the third world political system. And Almond, he explored the transition from traditional to modern political system. Please, you have to know this all. You have to know this all. ये बहुत important है from UGC NET point of view. Very important. कि when we are talking about structural functionalism and those scholars who were associated with structural functionalism, what according to them was political system? According to Aston, what was his focus? His focus was stability of political system. But Mitchell, what he viewed political system as a subsystem of social system. That means according to Mitchell, political system is nothing else but it is a subsystem of social system. Society में जो system चल रहा है उसका ये subsystem है. ठीक है? And what about Apter? Apter says that political system is nothing else but it is a third world political system. Third world means after 1940s and all, lot of Asian, African and Latin American countries, they got independence. And we all know that this structural functional approach, it got prominence after 1960s, mid 1960s ke baad. So, after he studied the third world political system, Almond, he says that he explored the transition from traditional to modern political system. And Almond also emphasized the importance of understanding Western political system as an idol for analyzing political change in developing societies. That means Almond also stresses that if you want to understand or analyze political changes in developing societies, if you want to understand political changes in developing societies, you need to study Western political systems. Okay, and 4 characteristics of political system according to Almond are, that means Almond talks about 4 characteristics of political system. One is specialized structure. First one is specialized structure. Second one, similar political function. Then multiple functions which are performed by the structure. And the last one is distinct political culture. So Almond talks about 4 characteristics of political system. 4 characteristics of political system. What are they? First, he talks about specialized structure. Second, he talks about similar political function. Third, multiple functions. And the fourth, distinct political culture. And Almond was the person who says that if you want to understand political change in developing societies, you need to study, you need to analyze Western political systems. And this Western political system had 4 characteristics. Okay? One was specialized structure, similar political functions, multiple functions, and distinct political culture. So this was what was structural functionalism. So in structural functionalism, let's talk again. Let's go into the word structure. Structural comes from the word structure. What structure? Political structure. And functionalism comes from the word function. So here, every political structure is performing functions. Okay? So here, the focus is on explaining the functions of political structure. Got it? Explaining the focus on political structure. Focus on explaining the functions of political structure. And what it involves comparing political systems by understanding the functions performed by different structures, and then whatever are the structures within the political system, they are arranged and the functions are weighed, which can be simple or complex. So functions are nothing else but they are observed consequences. And these observed consequences, they can be either adaptable or they can be readjustable. So this is what is structural functionalism. And in this structural functionalism, these are the scholars, but among them Aston, Mitchell, Apter and Almond, they had their views. Astor focused on stability of political system. Mitchell viewed about a political system as a subsystem of the social system. Apter studied about third world political system, and Almond explored the transition from traditional to the modern political system. And Almond even said that if you want to study the political change, if you want to analyze the political change in developing world, in developing societies, then you need to study, you need to understand Western political system. And according to him, there are 4 characteristics of Western political system. One is with regard to specialized structure, similar political functions, multiple functions with regard to their structure, and distinct political culture. Chalo, let's talk about the criticism. Criticism किसका? Structural functionalism approach का. Okay? Structural functional approach का, let's talk about the criticism. 15 minutes left for us, so we have to complete it on time. So criticism के अनुसार structural functionalism became dominant in political science after behavioral revolution. देखो, behavioral revolution is what? कि in political science, there is public administration. When the new public administration was formed, that was basically the behavioral part. Okay, so we can say that the structural functionalism became dominant in political science after behavioral revolution, number one. That is one of the criticism. Then the second criticism is that it is focusing on static relationship and neglecting dynamic and historical aspects of political science. That means this approach is only focusing on static relationship, the relationships which will be stable. That means they are talking about political structure and their functions, which will be static. See, ठीक है, अब ऐसा तो नहीं कि this remote will help me do some other work. ऑन ऑफ करने में तो मदद करेगा, इसके टेम्परेचर को अप डाउन करने में तो मदद करेगा. दैट मीन्स द क्रिटिक्स से दैट this approach focuses on static relationship and it has neglected the dynamic and historical aspects of political systems. Then this approach was criticized on the grounds that it tries to prioritize, that means give more importance. Prioritize means give more importance. It tries to prioritize the stability and survival of the system, which can be seen as a status quo approach. That means It's trying to prioritize, it's trying to give importance to stability and survival of the system. So this can be seen with a negative side, that is status quoist approach. Marxists also have criticized it. Marxists have criticized functionalism, like they have said that it's hindering revolutionary change and being defenders of the bourgeois and imperialism. That means Marxists have criticized structural functionalism approach, and they have said that this structural functionalism approach is causing hindrance in revolutionary changes. That means whatever revolutionary changes are being brought, it's being an hindrance to these revolutionary changes, and they are defending the bourgeois, that is the rich class, and the imperialist class. And when we talk about functionalism framework for understanding developing societies, were seen as disconnected from political realities and biased towards Western societies. That means, as we have seen, Almond says that if you want to study political system of developing societies, you need to examine, you need to study Western political system. So this was a certain biasness towards the Western political system. So this is what? That there is a biasness towards Western societies. Okay? That means they are trying to develop a framework for understanding developing societies, and instead of going with political realities, they are trying to go with Western societies. That means there is a biasness of this. Then the approach is parochial nature and emphasis on quantitative method. That is, it is giving emphasis on quantitative method, okay, and it disregards complexity of the third world countries. That means there are complexities with regard to the third world country. Complexity means India. Look at the complexity in India. Religion ke naam pe, language, whatever, there are a lot of complexities. So they are neglecting all these complexities, and they are trying to give a parochial nature and trying to emphasize on quantitative methods. That too with Western society validation. That means they are trying to study third world with regard to Western societies. So that is not justified. How can the Western societies be same as that of the third world societies? Third world societies have a lot of complexities. The Western societies, industrial revolution took place many years back. So even before the 18th century, industrial revolution took place. So how can you think of the how can you think of the similarity? So this is what is there. And despite criticism, the structural approach have advantages in studying Western democracies, but caution need when applying it to the third world country, considering political and societal realities. Okay. So this is what is with regard to today's topic. We have in today's topic, let me come up with the front one. Okay. So today, in today's class, we started with comparative politics. We talked about comparative politics. We gave a definition, Freeman ka definition, Q-tip ka definition, and then with the scope, and then we focused on the approaches. Today we talked about three approaches: institutional approach, system approach. In that we talked about David Aston's system analysis. And lastly, we also talked about one more approach, that was structural functionalism approach. All the three approaches are trying to talk about political system, but in their own manner. Like institutional approach tries to study political system with the help of political institutions, that too formal political institutions. Whereas systems approach tries to study political system, he tries to compare political system with regard to theoretical framework of that political system. And that theoretical framework is dynamic, it's interconnectedness, plus it's an input-output mechanism. And the last one was structural functionalism, where political systems have political structures and each political structure has their own function. So they are trying to study political system with the help of, they are trying to compare political system with the help of political structures which are there, and these political structures, they are performing various functions. So this is what is the comparative political approach when it comes to this system. And in all these three approaches, we have gone with the criticism also, and we have gone with the characteristics also. So now in the end, I will say, because approaches have not finished, I'll tell you, approaches have not finished. There are many approaches still to go on. Okay, there is a civic culture approach, there is a political, there is a Almond and Verbas concept of political culture, there is a political culture approach, then civic culture approach, then we have to talk about other approaches also, like modern approaches, we have many. So there are approaches, but whatever we are going through is with regard to your syllabus. Okay, so now today's task will be, whatever approaches we have done, you have to go through it in your home as a self-study. You have to do a self-regulating mechanism. So self-study is to be there. आप सबको आज के टॉपिक्स को पढ़ना है अच्छी तरह, but don't go by the name of the book. Whatever book you have read earlier, go with that book, try to understand it, and try to listen to this video. Yeah, whatever this class is, it is in a recorded format also. You will get it in the recorded format. If you have enrolled with this class, you will always also get a recorded format. Just listen to this video, you will be able to understand each and everything clearly. So myself, Girish Venkatesh, I'll be teaching you the paper 2 political science. Being a faculty of Drishti IAS, I thank you all for attending today's class that is live online on Drishti Learning app. And I would request each and every one of you to give your feedbacks, because your feedbacks are very important to us and to Drishti IAS. Because your feedbacks are just the energy, just the motivation which we as a teacher, we as an institution, we require. Because we are Drishti, our vision is to provide you best guidance when it comes to competitive exams. And that too when it comes to UGC-NET exams. See, it's what our first page says. It's a UGC-NET exam, and that too it's GRF NTA. So it's political science paper 2, and you must start your preparations if you want to go through this exam. And if you are passing this exam, if you're going through this exam, you know what's there for you in your future. So work hard at this point of time, and confidently you should work hard. You should not lower your confidence. Confidence is very important, and apart from confidence, you should be self-truthful. Self-truthful in the sense, not open your books and keep it like that and dream of something else. You have to study, and you have to be very, very systematic. Time management should be there. And rest of the things, we are there for you. But on your part, you have to do your work. On our part, we'll do our work. Our classes will be regular, and I want you all to be regular in the class and joining the live class is a very good thing, but you have to respond in the live chat as well. Okay, so thank you once again. Goodbye, and meet you tomorrow with other approaches. But before that, I'll tell you that tomorrow we'll start with the other left out approaches with regard to comparative politics. But before that, you have to revise whatever we have done today, and you have to sit in front of the whatever medium of study you have to sit in front of that. And when I ask one or two questions with regard to today's topic, then you are able to answer it. So please remember, we'll be asking one or two questions with regard to today's topic, so you should be able to answer it. And after that, we'll move into the next topic, that is the next approaches. Thank you very much. Thank you all, and God bless you all.